What's up?
Hi.
How are you guys?
PJ Marshall.
No one said PJ was coming. Fuck, I'm out.
No, goodbye.
Where in Spain are you, Howard?
I'm in Bilbao, just where the film screened over here in found Bilbao just recently.
Oh,
Awesome. Yeah.
That's
North of
cool.
Spain, yeah.
And you still wanted to talk to us. How about that?
I've seen it twice and I still wanted to talk to you. What was it that attracted you to the film? Was it more kind of this ecological message, or the fact that it kind of really did show different generations and different characters in this situation and how they deal with it in different ways?
So kind of early on, John and Dorota had developed this idea, and then they someone in the local town that I'm from, where John also lives very close by, connected, said like, oh, there's this actress Allison, she might be interested. So I kind of came onto the project, and initially it was the ecological side that attracted me so much, because I know that fracking is a huge problem in that area. People can light their water on fire out of their tap, which really, I mean, the gas has actually leaked into the water table. Some people, the ground beneath their homes is now broken and uneven because of the fracking nearby. So it's causing so many problems. And it was a conversation that I had with a cousin that lived in Pittsburgh, which is, maybe 2 hours from where this film was filmed. And it was a really big problem in that area. So I think that to me was the most exciting part of it. And then additionally, on top of that, I loved the idea of coming and shooting a film in my hometown, which is exactly what happened, which was crazy. And I, because I came on very early on, some of the characters weren't quite in alignment with like super appropriate in where I was. So we kind of shifted the script a little, and I came on to help produce and brought Kelsey, as she was a writing partner of mine, and kind of massaged the script and really wanted the characters to be fully realized, developed people. And I think she really focused on the drama between the characters. And Marc and I had worked together. I had a very small role in a film that he starred in like 10 years prior in New York. So I knew of him, and John had said, I'd love to have Marc. And I said, well, maybe we could reach out. And I know him, I've worked with him. So he and I had a conversation, and he really loved, I think I'll let him speak to it, but I think probably for some of the same reasons, like, hey, make a movie in your hometown. That's awesome. So that was kind of how I came and what drew me in initially. And once Marc was on board, and it was like the three of us, or four of us rather, with Dorota, it was like, okay, cool. Where is this going? And after developing the script, I brought on some casting from LA, and that was how we found these amazing humans, Monica and PJ, and the rest of the stellar cast.
So you're very heavily involved from the get-go, no? Yeah.
Yes.
Casting and everything, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and piggybacking on that, I mean, the idea of, it's so funny. It's like you grow up in these small towns, and they help, for me especially, it held such a dear place. It's like we have the luxury in doing what we do that we oftentimes get to travel the world and go to these exotic and unique places, and sometimes shitholes, to go film movies. And when suddenly something lands on your lap that you can go back to the hometown where you grew up in to go shoot a movie, it immediately, I was like, this is going to have to colossally suck for me to say no to this. And even though it did, I said yes anyway. No, and what beyond the obvious eco message, and I think I can speak for the cast. I'll let Monica and PJ, because they're here, but every single person responded to that. I think that we all, without standing on a soapbox, we all believe and hope the world to be a better place. And it's nice to be a part of storytelling where there's a bigger message involved. But on a strictly movie storytelling basis, for me, I loved that the genre component of the story didn't happen until page 60. Like, I love that it was a character story about two form, like you said, this multi-generational people in really tough situations, which again, speaking to the relevancy with people losing jobs and having to relocate, work from home and figure shit out. Like it really captured, this is before we knew it, but again, it was a slice of the times that a lot of people are facing right now, that it captured these two families, and you really got to know these people and the dynamics and the relationship and what they were going through before the quote unquote big bad genre horror component of the movie came in. And instead of the trappings of modern day storytelling where you kill a bunch of people in the first 30 seconds to catch the audience off guard, I love that they came about this in a character based way, and to their credit, and we just got an unbelievable cast of people. I hate being on Zoom and being in the worst actor in the fucking group. It drives me crazy.
Shut up. Oh my God.
It's such a good group of actors that are, you've seen it twice, like, like there's not a second you don't buy everybody that's in this movie, in this world.
Yeah,
including you, bro.
You can't put yourself down like
Dude.
that.
Including you.
No, I'm not putting
bro.
myself down. I'm just a realist.
But
we're including you, bro.
no kidding. And Blucas did
unbelievable
everything.
in the world. I fucking own a tractor.
Listen, just to put it into context, your role, I really could see you as a grandfather, and it was fantastic. But then I started to shit myself, thinking he's only 2 years older than me. I could be a grandfather. Now that was how realistic and how authentic you were. So you did a really good job.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what 4 hours. That's what the 4 hours a night of sleep will get you.
But also
Like
too,
Lucas doesn't
Also-
want to take credit.
also though, in small towns, that's what people do. They get married so
That's right.
early. They have kids so young. You know, I look at my classmates from high school and their grandparents, and I mean, I'm 21 years old, and I'm not a grand. I mean, I have an 8-year-old son. He's almost
You're
9.
awesome. You are so awesome.
I have a 9. He's gonna be 9 at the end of this month, and I've got friends, and that's how old their grandchildren are. And I'm like, what? So I think that's believable.
Appropriate. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, for me to be Allison's mom, sure, sure, that could happen. You know,
Yeah.
I think that it was believable.
I mean, now because we're talking to the actors, I mean, can PJ and Monica, can you tell me about that relationship? What attracted you about that relationship? Because it's a very curious relationship. Because like, you got married into the farm, no? And your daughter, well, I don't want to give too much away, but your daughter kind of comes with you because she wants to be with you, even though she doesn't specifically. That's not her life dream, no? Can you kind of explain a little bit about that relationship, how you went about preparing it, and what it was about that specific relationship that attracted you to play those parts?
Wow, that's such a good question. Honestly, like, I was floored that number one, that I got to audition for this project, and number two, when they said that I booked it, I was like, are you sure? Me? Really? And then, you know, you find out who's in the cast with you, and you go and you look it up, and you're like, holy shit, like, all these people have done all these things. So I felt like I was very grateful to be in their company. But I feel like you know, people, especially women, and especially women who have been in relationships that didn't work out, you do a lot of things that maybe you don't expect to do, and you find yourself putting up with a lot of things that you don't expect to put up with. And I think that Aubrey, you know, she has to do a balancing act, a juggling act between her commitment and her responsibility to her daughter and her family, and then also her managing of her relationship with her husband, and those are at odds, and it's never easy when your most important people don't feel the same way about each other as you feel about them. But I think that any woman of a certain age can identify with that balancing act, and I think that a lot of women can identify with putting everybody else first, except, you know, before themselves. And so that's just a feeling that comes very naturally, I think, you know, for what it's worth, unfortunately, maybe to a lot of women. So playing a character who was trying to please everybody, maybe not doing very much to take care of themselves, that was a good fit for me. As I said, I think I found my niche.
And then on the other side of the story, kind of PJ, your character, you're kind of like the man of the family, really. But at the end of the day, it's the women who wear the trousers, no, and kind of they want to keep things going. Now, I don't want to give too much away, of course. But was it easy to kind of get into that role and play this person who wasn't really interested, but at the same time you felt like you were the man of the house and things needed to be carried on via you?
That's a hard one to answer, because
It's a hard one.
man of the house was really Adrian.
Yeah.
And to be able to be a man who's I don't know, say afraid's too easy of a word, but to be struggling with that power that dominates me in a way, because she kind of dominates. And so he's trying to be the man, but he's constantly having to bow down to her in a way, in the way he talks to her, approaches her, and sometimes he goes in conflict with her. But it would be different, I think, if he was running the roost, in a say, because it's almost like she makes the final decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was the same with Marc's character as well, in a way, with Adrienne as well. Now you were kind of
that's not
to
the
do what
best.
you do because you needed to, but at the same time you kind of felt
Yeah,
pressure from Adrienne's character, not to go through with what you wanted to do, because it was kind of in the roots of all the people living in that community to carry on with the farming and the country, no?
Yeah, and I think it was hard because sometimes I wanted to naturally go to a certain place and have to remember, no, that's not Tom. He doesn't have the ability to do that. So I had to find a kind of framework to work in with him. Does that make sense?
I think you did that really beautifully. There are such
thank you.
like the cadence of your speech like slowed, and there were things that it was beautiful. Your work was so beautiful, PJ.
Something about you wanting to be strong but really being weak deep down just really worked, PJ. Maybe that's who you are. I mean, whatever. I don't know.
Marc just articulated it, which in a way I couldn't. Seriously, sometimes I have a hard time articulating. We all do.
I remember we had a lot of talks about that PJ. Like when you were
Marc sparked it off with when he described the character to me. Part of me went, "Oh, that's challenging," but it goes against your ego. It battles all these things that and you have to sort of shrink a little, and so that's challenging and fun, and it doesn't feel good when you walk away from a scene, even though you did it right. You feel like nothing.
I don't think you guys are seeing the full picture. Catherine, you got a highway at the back of your field now. Well, where's your dairy business?
Telling you, we gotta go big. We gotta get out.
Eddie Drake, Patriot Exploration.
Not interested.
We could pay up to $1,200 an acre. The world is leaving us behind.
Some of you are actually from that village, that town now. Is that something that you can see sort of very rife at the moment in that town, and also maybe in the film industry as well?
I think in the film industry, absolutely, 1,000%. As far as that town in particular, I don't live there now, but I do still see my family. I think it's got some polarities going on. It's one of those places where we just had we didn't just have an election. It's been a while now, but we had an election, and there was it was a place where there are polarities that show up, and I think some of those speak to the idea that John had said of like the traditional patriarchy of where we are versus kind of a rising of a feminine voice.
Make it stop!
Like we said, especially I think it was Marc said that he was very intrigued by the film, by the fact that the first kind of 60 minutes or so isn't pure horror. For a lot of people, that's going to be a drawing point, but for a lot of kind of hardcore horror fans that are going in there, slow burn isn't always what they want to see. So what would you say to make them go and see this film? Because it really is worth waiting, because I mean, for me especially, I just felt that even though it takes an hour or so to get into these characters, from the word go, they're all different generations. They've all got so many different problems. You can't help just getting wrapped into the whole story.
Well, for me, I'll give the quick answer for me is like, regardless of what genre is, like if good or bad things happen to people, it means something if you care about them. And you can't care about somebody in 3 minutes and then a bunch of bad shit happens. Then it's just for shock value. And I just don't think that's the direction any of us wanted to take these characters, or any of us wanted to take this story, which is like, okay, let's allow our audience time to really like and care about these people. And while that's happening, mind you, I think John and Dorota had a really nice, calculated, subtle hand in the filmmaking of trying to crank up the tension where it's imminent, it's inevitable, it's going to happen. It's just like more and more. It's like ratcheting up. And as you're learning about the people, you realize these are two opposing families, and at some point they are going to fucking collide. And we also know, because of the genre, we also know there's going to be a third component introduced at any moment.
Right. And the other character's the land, right? The land has been there longer than any of these families have been there. And that's like the underlying thing, right? You know, watching it, even though nobody's gotten murdered or lost an eye or whatever, had something erupt from their torso. But you know that like the land literally being underneath everything is what part of what makes it so sinister. You can feel that coming.
That was a big component in writing it, that the land, that was a character in and of itself. And I think the sound, Jane Saunders, the just did a brilliant score, that even though it's not a horror jolt from the beginning, there's just this underlying unease that she creates.
Absolutely.
The dis-ease.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. We were so lucky to have so many gifted artists in so many different areas. The DP absolutely agree with that.
Was just incredible. Una Lee, just the beautiful pictures that she has captured. I know that Kelsey, the writer, mentioned, what was she wanted Dorothy. These like pastoral scenes were written into the writing. There's this artist, Dorothy something.
Dorothea Lange?
Yes.
The photographer?
That was written into the sense of, and I just think Una captured that just so phenomenally.
And then to continue from that, obviously switching from the drama to full-on horror, you got to be careful because it has been kind of slowly percolating bit by bit. You don't want to just go all out all of a sudden. So how did you find that fine balance?
Well, I'd say that was us being in John and Dorota's hands. And that's what I want to say is you're very lucky when you get in the hands of a director like that, because you are in their hands. You're only doing your performance, but it's them guiding you. It's them seeing it. So if they're saying less or more, or kind of go in this direction or kind of go in that direction, you're giving yourself over. At least I try to. It's a great feeling, but that's them guiding with a great guiding hand. Beautifully done. It's rare.
We gotta go.
All the best. Take care of yourselves.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye, y'all.
Cheers,
Thank you.
Bye now. Thanks very
for
much.
having
Great
us,
seeing everybody.
No, thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye now.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.